Hello and welcome to Take the Stand Inclusive Leaders. I'm Denis-Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Obelisk Sport, a legal services business, and the founder of the First 100 Years Project, which celebrates the achievements of women in law. I'm on a mission to make the legal sector a more inclusive place. And so I've invited legal industry leaders who also care about inclusivity to have a conversation with me. This episode, I'm talking to Kate Cheetham, Chief Legal Officer and Company Secretary at Lloyds Bank. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, Donna, and thanks very much for inviting me today.
I'm really excited to chat to you because I know you have a lot of passions in this space. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you can share with our viewers. And without further ado, I will start with my first question. And I wanted to ask, what does inclusive leadership mean to you?
I think most of all, it's about creating a sense of belonging and a culture where people feel valued, they feel respected, and they feel able to achieve what they can. And I think at the bottom of this is a sense that you have to create that people are cared for, and that's the foundation. Also, that you're not just part of a team, but that my individual characteristics, my individual experiences, etc., are actually a positive. They're heard, I'm seen, they're part of what goes to create the organisation. And I think it's all those aspects.
That's great because actually that links very nicely to my next question because we are focused so much on leadership in this conversation. I was wondering whether you could share with us, as a leader, what you think are, I don't know, two or three top qualities of an inclusive leader.
Focusing on how people feel as well as how people think, and actually building your culture and an environment around that. I think you have to show that you think it's essential through what you do as well as what you say. I think that things like empathy, curiosity, humility are really important. And of course, in order to be able to do this, you have to be sufficiently self-aware to understand, what your personal biases are, how these might influence your decisions, and actually to understand the impact of how you are with others operates to create the environment that you're looking to create. I think you have to be brave. You have to advocate for change, like you do, and really stand up for it, and spend the time to understand other people's perspectives, to really kind of build insights and understand what people's different backgrounds, characteristics, and experiences are.
What you say remind me of, I think a leadership kind of specialist has talked about, nobody being hurt by thoughts, they're hurt
Yeah.
by words. And I think that really, what you say is basically very much aligned to that kind of philosophy of, thinking about what comes out, not just what crosses your mind. So really great. So, and because we've kind of understood a little bit about qualities, I was wondering whether you could share with us an example of your leadership style in practice.
I try very hard to be approachable, to listen, to recognize the importance of difference, and to live by the words that we've just been talking about. So approachable, human, interested in people, conscious of everybody, and what they bring to the team. I think those are the main things.
And in my previous conversations, people talked about different types of experiences they had that shaped them as future leaders. And so I was wondering whether you could think back in your career at an example of inclusive leadership you experienced as a woman in law and a leader in law. It doesn't matter when in that journey. And what was that experience? So why did it matter? And can I also say it wasn't always positive. So it wasn't always, sometimes people were made to become change makers by an experience that they were uncomfortable with, something they witnessed. So it doesn't need to be a positive example, but regardless, an example of inclusive leadership that has shaped your career and why?
It's difficult to choose one, isn't it? I think that when I first became a lawyer, when I first swapped over to law, I had been an art dealer, and so I came into, I came into a law firm quite a bit older than my peers, and having already kind of run a small business, and having and really coming from a very different place. I hadn't read law. Had read history of art, and my experience of my first seat um, was was absolutely fantastic. So I was worried that I wasn't going to be kind of the same as everybody else. That not having a law degree might be difficult. I wasn't sure what the experience was like or what I'd be able to bring. And my first principal was really amazing, very open. He made me feel as though I had lots that I could bring immediately, and he was really interested in my views from the start, which were clearly very uninformed. So I felt immediately as though I'd found somewhere that I belonged, and somewhere that I could add value, and somewhere where actually it was quite fun being different. And that was a really, frankly, unexpected place to be. I also had a not so good experience when I came back from maternity leave, feeling very wobbly, and had a chat with one of the partners about what I was going to do, and they sort of moved me into a particular area, which which was culturally quite unreconstructed. So that was a little bit harder going, I would say. And both of those experiences made me realize, the good and the bad of being in environments where you feel you can really be you, and therefore bring everything that you're able to bring.
Well, that's brilliant. It's brilliant that you could contrast the good and the bad and aim for better in your leadership. So I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, obviously, in the legal profession, we have there's been a lot of good change, but we still have barriers that people face. So I was wondering whether you could share with me what you think is the biggest barrier that is preventing us to creating more inclusion in the legal sector.
I think the starting point, to be honest, is still people's unconscious bias. And I think that goes quite deep. Um, I think it affects people's decision making about what great looks like, about what potential looks like, about what's okay and what isn't, performance, future, career choices, etc. So I think it's incredibly important that we all challenge ourselves the whole time on, what biases we may have, what factors may be influencing us when we think about each of these. There are individual as well as kind of cultural and systemic factors which play an important role here. I think also, and we've talked about this before, sometimes traditional ways of working don't favour inclusivity. Not just people with caring responsibilities, but many other aspects as well. So really understanding what's going on in people's lives, what's important, and how you allow that flexibility is essential. And then thirdly, I think a lack of diversity in leadership positions really can perpetuate an organisation's lack of diversity, where where particular types of people with particular backgrounds are kind of not well represented or valued, because then it just looks as though you don't really belong at the top.
I think you've covered, some of the kind of things I was going to ask you next in terms of improving inclusive leadership and what more could we do. But definitely, I agree, we need to see more diverse leadership as well to then be able to change some of the structures. What is, in your view, the one question you should ask yourself if you want to be a more inclusive leader?
Do I understand the factors that influence the decisions that I make, the conclusions that I come to about people, about teams, about, you know, what does not just what does inclusion look like, but in my day-to-day work and my day-to-day interactions, do I really understand where I come from, part one, and then am I really engaging with the people, with all the people I come into contact to, whether that's frankly directly or indirectly. Am I understanding what they're saying, how they're feeling, what really matters to them, and what makes a difference? So I think quite often it's sort of hard to know the impact that you're having, and you can't, for a couple of reasons. So you know, the first is pretty obvious. It's your feelings, not the other person's, that you're really privy to. But the second is that it's actually it's difficult to understand other people sufficiently well unless you really spend time on that, and I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I think just, as you say, liking people. It's a
Yeah,
good start if you want to lead people. Because if you don't like them, you won't have the curiosity to discover them, and then you won't find out the things that make them tick and understand your motivations. But it is a good place to start to actually want to be that kind of ear that listens to people, is a place where people come and ask questions and you're approachable, I guess. But
yeah. And I think also, I mean, we're very analytical as lawyers, very good at logic, very good at analysis, very good at, you know, sort of thinking things through. But the more emotional side of storytelling, of kind of engaging, as I say, with people's emotions, I think we spend less time learning about that, and and that goes to, as you say, you know, do you actually like people? Do you actually like interacting with them? And do you, you know, do you get energy out of it as well? Do you really want to learn, and are you curious about people, um, rather than just, you know, about thoughts? And I think we could definitely do more there.
luckily, I think with COVID, we are allowed to be more human, and that's good because I think there are, from in my experience, lawyers are very humane. Sometimes the nature of the legal system encourages this kind of positioning, and we're always against each other as opposed to on the same page. Whereas on this kind of topic, we have to be on the same page because we are leaving too much talent behind. We aren't, the place that we want to be. And so being more humane, it's fine because there is no battle to be won, unlike in court. So I think you are right. I think just bringing your whole self to work, as they say, it's a good start.
Yeah, and I think you've done a lot to encourage the power of collaboration, and I think, you know, you're absolutely right that there is loads that we can do together, and we're always going to be more powerful, more effective if we do.
I couldn't agree more. So but I do love people. So it's just one of those things, but it brings us actually to the very end of our conversation. Feels so quick. But the last question I want to ask you is, who is your inclusive leader, role model, and why? And they don't have to necessarily be a real person. They can be fiction, they can be anyone you want, or a collection of people that make the role model for you. But it would be great to hear.
So my inclusive hero is Nelson Mandela. I think I think the generosity of spirit, the forgiveness that he showed is absolutely extraordinary. But also as a leader, um, you know, I've read a number of biographies of his and interviews with him, etc. And there are lots of quotes which stand out. But one was when he talked about leadership. He talked about when things are going well, you stand at the back of the team, and when things aren't, you stand at the front. Um, but I think he had a power to bring people together, which was absolutely exceptional. And clearly, after what he went through himself, to be able to do what he did, the reconciliation that he brought about, and the way in which he brought out the best in people, I think, was absolutely exceptional. No doubt that's somebody that lots of other people have talked about. So sorry, it's probably not somebody new for you, but I'm inspired by him every day.
I don't think that's a problem, because we are interested not just in who is the role model, but why. And the reasons why we are inspired are very personal. So I didn't hear about the kind of positioning of the leader quote. So that's a really interesting one, because I often feel that I get involved when I always call them the kind of UN crisis talks. When there's a crisis, I'm totally in, and I guess that's part of it, that resilience and willingness to tackle a difficult moment maybe sets one apart. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Kate, for this wonderful chat and for your insights and thoughts. It's been great to have you on my video series. And I hope the viewers also found this conversation interesting and useful, and that it's given them plenty of ideas for making your workplace, your team, and your organization more inclusive. To find more conversations on inclusivity, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Obelisk Support, or connect with me on LinkedIn, searching Dana Denis-Smith and heading to my video sections. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch by email at d.denis-smith@obelisksupport.com. Thank you for viewing us, and see you next time.